Thank you for plugging into this Family Life News podcast, streaming issues-driven, family-focused news.
This is Faith Under Fire. Each Thursday on Family Life, we give voice to religious battlegrounds in this nation. I'm your host, Tracy Lynn. With us today, Katie Glenn, Government Affairs Counsel for Americans United for Life. Katie, your group based in Washington, D.C. has ranked these 50 states on life issues in the Life List for 2021. Which state came out on top?
Well, this year we were really excited to have a new number one. It's Arkansas. Last year it was Louisiana. Arkansas got that top spot. The lawmakers there have been so focused. They've been relentless on passing life-affirming laws across all of the categories from fertilization all the way to natural death that we do cover at Americans United for Life. And in 2019, Arkansas lawmakers passed 10 pro-life laws. So when you're working that hard and doing that much, it's hard to not eventually end up on top of the list.
Well, we all can certainly use some good news to start the year after months of a pandemic. And I can sort of guess, but did Pennsylvania or New York happen to make it among the top 20 on the life list?
They did not. Pennsylvania is number 23. Primarily that is because of laws that were passed 10 to 15 years ago. They had some really great, very bipartisan pro-life lawmakers. You know, the Pennsylvania legislature is doing everything they can. They did pass, like a Down syndrome abortion prohibition bill last year, but Governor Wolf is vetoing everything, so it makes it tough. And New York is falling on the list. They made number 45 this year, in large part because of the omnibus bill that they did last year, where they stripped out a lot of pro-life laws.
Yeah, and the law called the Reproductive Health Act passed in January 2019, and that legalized all abortions up to 24 weeks of gestation. And beyond that, abortion was even deemed legal if the woman's, quote, health or life are at risk. New York gained national attention with all of that. Unfortunately, there was celebration to the horror of many of us, and certain buildings were lit up when that bill became law.
It definitely was a statement by New York lawmakers that not only do they support and celebrate abortion, but they rolled back health and safety laws, those protections that have nothing to do with the actual ability to obtain an abortion, but are really about making sure that women are receiving adequate medical care. They rolled those back as part of the Reproductive Health Act. So it's like more than just being pro-abortion. It's about going further than that and really repealing laws that were passed to protect women's health and safety.
States can defund Planned Parenthood through Medicaid. At least that's the case for states in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi from the ruling by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. But what can our listeners who live under the jurisdiction of more liberal circuits do, including the Second and Third Circuits covering New York and Pennsylvania?
Well, we have seen some new judges come on to the Second and Third Circuit. So it's definitely possible that we could see some good case law coming from that part of the country in a way that really hasn't historically because of all of the new judges that came in the last 4 years. But certainly right now, the biggest thing that anyone can do is to call their lawmakers in Congress and remind them of how important the Hyde Amendment is. And that's that law that says that federal taxpayer money cannot be spent on elective abortions, reminding them that you, along with 70% of Americans, do not believe that taxpayer money should be spent on abortions, and that is so important to keep in our laws as budgets are passed for the next couple of years.
That's good information. Thank you for that, Katie. On the national front, Joe Biden has selected abortion advocate Xavier Becerra to be the next Health and Human Services Secretary. Speaking of the Hyde Amendment, he did not vote in favor of that. He was a member of the U.S. House representing downtown L.A. for several years. So there's a clear trail of his voting record when it comes to abortion support. Is there anything you'd like to elaborate on, maybe a couple of other things he's upheld or rejected?
Well, as the Attorney General of the state of California, he has not just been pro-abortion, but he has actively pursued and prosecuted pro-lifers. He has been very involved in prosecuting David Daleiden, who was the whistleblower about Planned Parenthood selling fetal baby parts. He was involved with a lawsuit suing NIFLA, the pregnancy care centers, requiring them to provide information about where to get an abortion when it's against their mission. He lost in the Supreme Court, I will add. So he's made it clear that not only is he willing to push for laws that expand abortion, whether it's taxpayer funding for it, later term, but also that he's willing to use the force of government to go after pro-lifers who oppose expansion of abortion.
Wow, kind of scary. Katie, on a grassroots level, how can we, the folks who value life in its many forms, make a positive difference in our own neighborhoods?
You know, I think this is the most important thing. We can pass all the laws in the world, but we need to have a life-affirming culture. So supporting local community groups, whether it's a pregnancy care center in your neighborhood or a nursing home, affirming life doesn't just mean opposing abortion. Calling your lawmakers at the state level and at the federal level and letting them know what you think and why it's so important that our laws and our government is saying you can do it to women and supporting them in raising their babies, because ultimately we need to have a world where abortion is not just illegal, it's unthinkable.
Well said. Katie, where can our listeners find out more about Americans United for Life?
You can visit our website, aul.org, or you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at AUL.
That's Katie Glenn with Americans United for Life. I'm Tracy Lynn, Family Life News.